Hi, I'm Steve Solon. I'm a storage solutions architect. I have been working in IBM storage for well over 2 decades now. Very involved in what we're doing with our current flash storage, and that's where I am. That's where we're going.
Hi, my name is Chris Vollmer. I'm a storage architect out of Canada.
And I'm Brian Sherman, a distinguished engineer, also based in Canada.
So, Brian, one of the conversations I've been getting now with a lot of our customers, especially with the IBM and Red Hat acquisitions, where are we going with containers and storage? And the other part of that conversation that comes up around is persistent storage and containers and where we're starting to see customer utilization and things. Any thoughts on what you're seeing and hearing from customers?
Yeah, and it's one of those, as more and more business applications are being deployed in containers, well, I need to keep the data.
Mm-hmm.
So hence around persistent storage, if we go back in time a little bit, the storage was ephemeral, so containers spit up, containers spit down, data goes away.
Yep.
As we have regular business types of applications being created and deployed, I need to have the data accessible whether or not the container is there or not.
Gotcha.
So that's where the whole concept of persistent storage comes from. And recently, with the introduction in Kubernetes 1.13 with a container storage interface that all of us will write to allow persistent storage to be created and maintained.
Gotcha. So that's the CSI conversation, CSI driver we have customers talking about. And Steve, you've got a CSI demo running in one of your labs you do for customers. Can you talk a little bit about how you got it set up and the pieces you've been using?
So we actually have OpenShift running in our VersaStack environment.
Awesome.
And until a few minutes ago, you could see it, but we just tore it down, and it's actually getting shipped to Barcelona for the next show there.
That's great news.
So it basically is very simple. It's a plug-in architecture where, again, Kubernetes has this piece where they say, here's what you gotta do,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and then our plugin says, well, here's what that means to a 9100 or an 8K or any other storage. So we have the ability to add a scale as well.
IBM Spectrum Scale, right? Yep.
So we have the ability then to basically create a translator around here's what the actions you want to do, and here's what you have to do on specific IBM storage or types of storage to get that action done.
Awesome. So Brian, what are some of the actions that we're starting with? Obviously it's write and read data, but where do we start to see customers say, I want to leverage the CSI for other ways for those persistent volumes?
Yeah, it will certainly evolve.
Yeah.
And one of the points to make is, we'll certainly tie into OpenShift.
Gotcha.
and its capabilities, but we from the storage layer don't require OpenShift either.
Okay.
So if our clients are doing something else with another orchestration layer, then we can tie into that as well. And for CSI's capabilities today, it is pretty basic.
Gotcha.
It's create a volume, delete a volume, and be able to use it, read, write to it. So it's fairly basic. It's going to evolve. We'll see subsequent capabilities roll in to be able to do snapshots of the containers and then be able to back up those containers.
Replication as well?
Down the road.
Yep.
You think about it, right? I've got this data that's now residing in container. I'm going to want to do everything to that data and that volume that I can do now, right? I need to replicate it. I need to have high availability for it. I need to be able to take snapshots of it to protect it. So we're going to have to evolve all those capabilities because the needs of the data aren't any different because it's in a container. I've still got the need to protect it and make sure I've got copies of it. I also, right, I'm going to have, like I do now, I've got my production data, I've got to move it over to dev test, I've got to move it over for business warehousing, there's all sorts of things. So all those things that we do now, we're going to have to find a way to do in this environment to enable that same sort of business action, not necessarily exactly the same because it's containerized,
Sure, yep.
but that same sort of things to happen on the data that now is being manipulated in a container as opposed to in a physical machine or a virtual machine.
So I don't know about you, but when I'm talking to customers, and I'm starting to see customers experiment with containers, they're looking to re-leverage things like, so you mentioned the FS9100 in your demo rack right now. Customers are running, okay, how do I start my containers beside my today workloads as I start to understand and play with it in practice? Is it about what you're seeing as well?
Yeah. And actually the environment we have, we're running inside a virtualized environment. And
Okay.
we're seeing that customers sometimes not wanting to go the bare metal route and using the virtualization to, again, create that abstraction from the hardware so they don't have to care about it as much and provide a familiar environment that they already kind of know, and then running the container environment inside that.
And it also lets them say, I can leverage the assets, or I can leverage the infrastructure I already have, I can leverage the patterns I already have, data replication like you talked about, and get used to it while I start to onboard containers and such into my environment as well. Brian, from a where we're going perspective, other members of the family we're looking at around containers, other members of the family around how we're going to enable them with OpenShift, anything we can start to think about there as we look down the road?
Yeah, so mention it up front that we have two separate drivers today. One from the block portfolio, so that'll pick up the block family, and then
like Spectrum Virtualize, like Spectrum Accelerate, like DS8000.
Right. So pick up so initially today was Spectrum Virtualize and DS8000 coming. The Spectrum Scale driver as well. So again, different for block and file capabilities.
Sure.
Both of those drivers are today available in beta form out on Git, and over the next couple months announce general availability and be available again as we go through the program with our clients.
Steve, any other things you're seeing with customers as they start to experiment with OpenShift, as they start to experiment with containers that really starts to make sense for you as you're helping them out?
It's all really at a very early stage right now.
Gotcha.
So most of the customers we talk about, some of them aren't even looking at it, they're thinking about it, they're talking about it, they're looking forward. So I think we're a little ways away from seeing the customers really start to pound on this per se. And then as that happens, we're going to need those extensions that we talked about earlier to enable the protection of the data around what they're used to in the current environments.
But the part of this means that we were laying all that foundation already. So as customers start to look at containers and start to adopt things, that road and that path is getting laid out already, right?
Yes.
And has been for a while.
Yep, indeed.
Awesome. My name is Chris Vollmer. I'm a storage architect out of Canada.
My name is Brian Sherman, distinguished engineer with IBM.
Steve Solon, Solutions Architect from Tucson, Arizona.